All right, just want to give a heads up that this meeting is being recorded. All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending tonight. This is the VTD presentation for the bus shelter replacement project. I'm Kevin House, joined here by Suzanne Score, and Paul DeStefano is sitting here in the audience. So this project is the construction of bus shelters within the Valley towns. This is from an FTA grant that NVCOG has received. The bus study was looking at CT Transit and Greater Bridgeport Transit bus stops within these Valley towns and determining which bus stops should get shelters. Some of these locations do have shelters, but many do not. This presentation will be showing a list of the recommended sites. At this time, we have 16 sites total that we'll be showing you tonight. These sites were assessed for ADA accessibility, topography, sight lines, right-of-way impacts with potential construction, utility pole conflicts, as well as electrical access. We want to hear your feedback on these sites that we have chosen. If you think this is a great fit or not, we want to hear what you have to say. So with that, I will turn it over to Suzanne to go over the sites in detail.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So yes, we originally had looked at 50 locations between Seymour down the Naugatuck+Valley corridor into Shelton. And I'm going to quickly just scroll through the overall the site map so you can see where our locations where the locations are in proximity to each other. Let me just refresh. Should zoom into each site. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this overall map shows in blue dots where the selected locations are located in the corridor. And as we get down through each of these, I'll take a closer look and give you some more background as to why these were selected. So here are our first locations in Seymour. Out of 4 locations that were evaluated, 3 have been selected. Spruce and New Haven Road, Main Street and Bank Street. Moving down to Broad Street and Main Street. And then moving down to Ansonia, Main Street and Bridge, inbound. Main Street and Ansonia Mall, stop 2. And then jumping over to Derby, we've got Spring Street and Maple near Griffin Hospital. And I'll give you a little more detail on these after we scroll through these overall locations. Number 7 is also in Derby, Seymour Avenue and 9th Street. Elizabeth and 5th Street, both inbound and outbound. Moving down through Derby at New Haven Avenue and Chapel Street. These are all on the CT Transit Route 255 routes. New Haven Avenue opposite Mount St. Peter's Cemetery. And then the inbound and outbound locations at New Haven Avenue and Willard Road and Sodom Lane. And then we jump over to across the river to the Greater Bridgeport Transit locations. There's 3, Main Street and Water Street, Main Street and Factory Street. So that's the inbound and the outbound locations. And then we have Main Street opposite Elizabeth Street. So now I'm going to jump to each of these individually so you can see the specific locations and their conditions. So in Seymour, Spruce and New Haven, there was a former shelter in this location. It was taken out by a vehicle at one point, so we're looking at adding some bollards for safety measures and adding a shelter back to this location. And the municipality supports reinstalling a shelter at this location. We have good sight lines. There's a wide sidewalk, so we have no issues with complying with ADA accessibility. We have no right-of-way issues, and there's electricity available as well. Main Street and Bank, I know this building is no longer here. This is just the street view of the prior condition. But it has a nice flat surface. It's walkable. There's a lot of shopping in the immediate area. We have access to electricity, and it's across the street from the train station. So that makes it a very good candidate as well. Also, that we took rider count under consideration, and this is one of the higher monthly rider counts, most likely due to the proximity of the train station. So that's supporting public transit doubly. And the third location in Seymour is Main and Broad, which again has a prior pad, access to electricity, and some sidewalk improvements would be needed here in this case. So not every location is pristine and ready for a shelter just to be set down. We will be doing new pads, making sure there are crossing signals and crosswalks identified at the adjacent intersections, and making repairs as needed to the adjacent sidewalks so they are safe and accessible. Moving into Ansonia, we have Main and Bridge Street, which again has enough room for a shelter here. It's in a retail district, so it's a good location for commuters and people that needs services. The Main Street and Ansonia Mall location is a little more challenging due to the sight lines around this curve, and there may be some right-of-way concerns with accessing the sidewalk with a full 4-foot wide access path around this shelter. But we think that we could either do a modified design to the shelter or potentially gain some access to the perimeter of the parking lot. Spring and Maple is located near Griffin Hospital, so that's definitely a strong candidate. There is a shelter there, but it's a little outdated. And one of the things that we'll be looking at when we do new shelters is making sure that, if there's a need for it, we will include things like Wi-Fi charging, lights for visibility at night, and making sure that the area immediately adjacent to the shelters have adequate sight lighting for pedestrian safety at all times of the day. This location in Seymour is a little more challenging. This is one of the ones that will require a little more effort to comply fully with our goals. The sidewalk is deteriorated and will need for some replacement, but this is another location that has some local support for additions. But in this case, we would make sure that the sidewalks leading to it within at least a block or two, that hasn't been determined yet, but those would receive improvements as well for accessibility. As we get into final design and look at each of these sites in more detail, we'll have a better understanding of exactly what the limits of improvements in construction will be. But for the most part, these all do have very good accessibility at the moment, good lighting, and are popular for, with riders that justify, getting these new improvements and new shelters. This one is the inbound side on Elizabeth and 5th Street in Derby. Again, nice and wide open. There are faded crosswalks. I think they may have been actually replaced since this Google Street View is taken. But in addition to this, we would also address the outbound location across the street. This one is a little tighter due to the on-street parking and parking meters and site light poles that exist, and the retaining wall on the park. But we would do a modified, probably 2-post shelter design in order to accommodate that and allow for pedestrian passage. This location in Derby, this is Chapel Street, New Haven Avenue, or Derby Avenue and Chapel Street. This is a little more challenging again due to the large crossing that residents from this neighborhood would have to make in order to get to the shelter. The location is actually on this side right here. So adding a pad and a enclosed shelter will be beneficial there. But in addition to that, we will have to add some crosswalks, maybe address the timing of the traffic lights to make sure that they're staggered long enough for people to cross. And any additional drop ramps for pedestrian crossing would be added here as well. There is infrastructure in place though with signalization for pedestrian crossing. So that's already in place, which is a good thing. So it's primarily just timing the lights and adding crosswalks and making sure that there's paved access to the location. This is New Haven Avenue, opposite Mount Peters Cemetery. This is a high-speed road, so it does have some challenges with the curve here. I think the shelter is located more or less back in this area past the gas station. So in this case, obviously, we would need to add sidewalks in addition to provide the shelter. There is street lighting on the road, so that's good. We'll take a closer look at the speeds and sight lines coming around this curve there where the bus would pull off. And then we'll have the inbound and outbound locations on New Haven Avenue and Willard Road. There already is some infrastructure in place for pedestrian crossing. There's a signal. There is a pedestrian ramp here to access a pad, so a shelter can be placed here. It's located adjacent to a lot of retail and places of employment. So it's a popular location and really warrants a stop. Again, we would look at crosswalks, making sure that any pavement repairs or signalization updates would be addressed as well when the shelters would be added during our final design phase. And this is the look across the street on the outbound side. Again, there was a pad prepared, signal put in place with the anticipation that there would be a need for a shelter, and the one that was here was taken down just due to age and deterioration. So we'll look at what size we need, whether we need to make any improvements or enlarge this, but that would be the next location. And the last three are over on the Bridgeport Route 15 line. This is by the Home Depot. So we have the inbound and the outbound side. Now this currently is undergoing repairs. DOT is doing reconstruction of this location now, so it doesn't look like this at the moment, but both sides of the street obviously warrant having a bus shelter due to the ridership and the proximity to businesses and places of employment. And this is the other side of the street currently, so it's torn up now. They'll be adding the infrastructure and the space that's necessary to add the shelters in both of these locations. And the last one is Main Street opposite Elizabeth Street. This is Elizabeth on Main Street itself. It's pretty much ripped up due to construction, so the final product is a little difficult to envision, but it's a good level area. It's close to a lot of retail and businesses that support public use. So those fairly quickly are the 16 sites that are currently going to be further developed. We'll be doing a closer study and survey to understand exactly what size shelters we need, what the amenities will be, in addition to shelters, whether that's drop ramps, crossing signals, or lighting. And as far as the style of the shelter that we're considering is something that's relatively traditional. These are 3 different manufacturers, but they all offer a variation of the same theme, whether we do 4 posts or 2, depending on the width of the sidewalk available. We have the option of adding lighting. There's the option of putting advertising panels on the side if any community or any of the municipalities are interested in adding that feature. Seating can be leaning bars or full benches. These can be accessed from the front or the back, depending on the amount of space we have available. USB ports and trash cans can also be incorporated. So there are a lot of options and amenities that can be added to this, any of these designs. So essentially, that is where we're at right now with our preliminary assessment and design development. And our next step is to get some feedback from any members of the community or municipalities that are interested in providing this to the NVCOG and pursuing final design. And with that, I think I'll turn it back to Kevin.
All right, yeah, thank you for the presentation of going over the locations I'll open the floor to anyone who has any questions about anything about this project. So you can give it here in person, or if you're tuning in virtually, I can give it into the chat box and we'll answer them.
Hi, my name is John Ortzala. I'm calling from the Kennedy Collective. We do travel training throughout the state of Connecticut. And if I can add one location, no harm, because I think this is the environment to do so. If you can go to 1 Derby Avenue on Route 34 in Derby, and the cross street is Gilbert.
Mhm.
So basically, what we do for travel training is we train persons with intellectual, cognitive, and sensory disabilities how to take public transportation throughout the state of Connecticut. And we actually had a challenging training in that specific area. Where that is it's there's like a bridal salon going toward away from New Haven, but going to New Haven on the other side of the street, it's a laundry. No, it's a dry cleaners. It's called and then right next to it, it's called House of Bones. So if you go to 1 Derby Ave and that's basically Route 34, there is a bus stop. I'm sorry, there's a bus stop there, but I'm not sure if this is the place to bring it up, but what the heck, can't hurt. There's no shelter there, but also the kicker is if you get left off there. So again, we were travel training someone with an intellectual disability. If they're dropped off there, and it's also called, there's a barbecue now defunct called House of Bones on the right-hand side, where the laundromat is on, again, directly across on 1 Derby Avenue and Route 34. If they get off, if they depart from the bus there, the only way that they can cross 34 safely is going up to Willard over by Starbucks, crossing that way, and then waiting for the bus and coming, taking it all the way back down. Because we had an individual that lived very close to 1 Derby Avenue, which is up a little ways toward New Haven. But anyway, if you do see like a picture of that intersection, it's a very active. I mean, that's like almost like the heart of that side of Derby, and it's very, it's Route 34, and heck of a lot of traffic. And again, there's no safe way to cross that from that side to over to 1 Derby Avenue. So just our input, just our observation. We're boots on the ground every day, regardless of the weather, et cetera. So that's out of this area. That would be the only one that I would recommend if there's any like a plan B, or if they have any funds to just consider at least just putting in some sort of crosswalk or something in that area, because there's absolutely nothing. And again, if you're getting dropped off there, you literally got to take the bus all the way up, cross over by Starbucks, wait for the next bus if it's raining or snowing, and then take it back down to 1 Derby Avenue. So that's my input. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Thank-
what's your name again? I'm sorry, I
So-
missed it.
Oh, that's it. Hi, John Wardzala.
Sorry, I thought I was sharing this before while you were speaking. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yep.
John, my name is Paul DiStefano from SLR. So believe it or not, we're actually working on a pedestrian connectivity project right now in that area, that exact location you're talking about. As part of that project, there's going to be a new crosswalk going in that exact location
Oh, great.
from Gilbert to the other side of the street, the cleaners you're talking about.
Yes.
There's going to be a center median refuge island in the center of Derby Ave, Route 34. That's going to assist with that crossing as well. So that's actually part of a separate project. I don't know if that helps answer your question at all.
Oh,
but
it does. Absolutely.
There are improvements that are going to be made. It's just a matter of time.
All right,
Hopefully it's
great. Thank you.
next year.
Got it. All right. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And so we actually, at the Kennedy Collective, we have persons that live in that area, again, with intellectual, cognitive, sensory disabilities, and they literally take the bus from that location where it's like a block up the street on the left-hand side, where that's where they live, all the way over to Reservoir in Trumbull. So they go on and pick up the they take the 255 and then they eventually, GBT and they go all the way over to the Trumbull. But thank you for that. That's great. So I could share that with the team back at the shop. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course.
This was one of the locations that was in the overall 50 assessment sites, but the challenge is in making it actually safe and accessible so much larger than just placing a shelter. That, it's good that there is another project that's actually going to be able to envelop that. Because you're right, there are a lot of concerns safety wise to move through the space.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks again.
All right, any other questions or comments regarding this project?
Hi, good evening. My name is Meg Hafner. I'm also with the Kennedy Collective, and part of my job is to go out and do presentations regarding public transportation to seniors, persons with disabilities, veterans. I will be doing a presentation this week in Derby, and I'd love to be able to give them the public comment or the link where they can join, comment. Is that accessible on the NVCOG?
Yes, so we have a project webpage located on the NVCOG website. You can also you can also email me directly at kellis@nvcogct.gov with any questions. And so the two locations I'd say is emailing me or accessing the website directly to read up about the project and get further contact information.
Great, thank you so much.
And I'd love to answer any questions that you receive.
If I can
Thank
jump
you.
in real quick as well. This is Rich Donovan, the Director of Transportation Planning for NVCOG. So the project page can be found at nvcogct.gov, going to current projects and transportation projects. You'll see the listing as well as this presentation or this story map is there. You can also send comments or questions to contact us at nvcogct.gov, which is perhaps a little easier to remember. And if you don't mind, actually, if you'd like to have somebody either send some additional information or join you for that meeting, please let us know. We'd be happy to share more about this.
Yeah, that would be great if I could get, whatever, however I can share or show, if the presentation were available, I could show that to them or even just some sites near them. That would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, we would very much appreciate any feedback.
Thank you.
We have a chat.
We do.
Yeah, would you mind opening it?
Sure.
So the question from chat is, any plans to having sitting along the bus route? I'm a homeowner on 115 in Seymour.
Yeah, is that the location on East 9th, near East 9th Street? Because we will provide seating in certain locations, but not in all of them. I mean, if it's a more, that may be something that we have to discuss with each municipality per location and also address that with the community directly. Because whether you want seating or not can vary from site to site. Whether you only want a leaning bar or maybe a single seat versus a bench, those are details that will come up and have to be assessed with each location's direct, the people that are immediately impacted by that. Shit.
Yeah. Let us know if that answers your question or not.
Kind of, sort of. You answered the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I live more of the
Specifically, what
colony part of Seymour, and you just see, as you're passing by driving, lots of families standing at the corner with children. And I come from Cincinnati originally, and seating is everywhere, regardless of there being shelters. So that was something new to me coming to New England, where you see very little seating. And that just is a concern that I have, especially given the fact that, I live right on 115.
So are you saying the lack of seating is a concern because you
It
see
is.
so many families waiting and they don't have a place to sit while they're waiting?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And, none of us are getting young.
right. No, that makes, typically we do at least include seating within the shelter, whether this program would accommodate additional seating beyond the limits of the shelter, I'm not sure, but I feel like depending on the location, some locations or some municipalities, the city may say, no, we don't want to encourage people hanging out where, you know, where they have shelter, even though practically for the people that are typically using the buses, it makes sense to include that. So it does have to be decided a little bit on a case-by-case basis. And I don't know if there are any particular concerns anybody has at the locations that we're presenting right now, but typically a bus shelter would include a bench seat.
Mhm.
Unless somebody specifically said, you know, we really have issues and we really just want a leaning bar or just a place to stand. So that would be where we would start. We would start with providing all of the comforts and accommodations that we would want. And unless there was some strong pushback because of issues that are happening in certain locations, we might modify that. But I hear you. I mean, trying to make transportation, public transportation more comfortable and more accessible is the goal of our team, you
Mhm.
know, so we definitely are in support of anything like that, that would make it more pleasant.
And I know that NVCOG is also in support of these same ideas and visions
Right.
for public transportation.
I have a question. So since we're all over the state of Connecticut, when we see anything that's like a shelter that's all, hit by a car or smashed up, who do you recommend we call? And the second part of the question is, are the shelters, who owns the shelters? Is it the town? Is it the city, or is it DOT?
Unfortunately, that is a very complex answer. There's not one model for every shelter or, every city, every town, every site. And so if you come across something, at least that's within the NVCOG region, feel free to contact us. The Department of Transportation also has an online form. And if you contact them with something that is not theirs to repair, they will reach out to the town that is responsible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I believe also if you encounter one of these shelters within the greater Bridgeport Transit service area, you can contact them and they have their own shelter replacement program.
Got it. Thanks.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
And as a reminder, if you have comments that you'd like to share in the future or questions about this program as it goes forward, you can contact us at any time at contactus@nvcogct.gov. Or you can call our office. The phone number is right there on the front of nvcogct.gov, as well as Kevin's individual contact information and this presentation with other information about this project.
All right, hearing no more comments or questions, I'll say thank you for attending, everyone. And of course, if you have any comments or feedback that you have in the future, you know where to find us, nvcogct.gov. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.